Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Feel It to Heal It podcast. Today, we are hopping on for an Instagram Live with an autoimmune health coach. I'm so excited for this conversation. So we are about to hop on live right now. So you can watch this on the YouTubes, the Instagrams, listening to it on Spotify, Apple. We got so many options. All right, let's do the damn thing. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see how wild my hair is. All right, so let's see, we're just adding a title. So today's topic, you'll get a sneak peek before we head on live. Healing. Stelita, leave it. Stella, leave it. Go girl. Healing autoimmune disease through living in alignment. Ooh, juicy, juicy. Okay, let's do it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Morning Tea Live. Cheers! Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys are doing fabulously. Okay, today we have a very special guest on. Her name is Xenia. She is an autoimmune health coach. And today we're going to be talking about how to heal autoimmune disease through living in alignment. So, okay, Xenia just joined, so we'll get her on here. And this is going to be such an important topic because we don't often connect the mind and body. So we are going to teach you how living in alignment will help you heal any autoimmune disease you have. All right, so excited for this topic. All right, it says you're joining. There we go. Hello. Hi.
Good morning to you.
Yes, good evening to you. What time is it by you?
Coming out an hour earlier for me.
Oh my God, of course. Thank you for spending your evening. What time is it there again?
It is 7 p.m. now.
Okay, nice. Oh, I love it. This is the beauty of connecting all over the world.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Oh, well, it's so lovely to meet you. And cheers. Thank you so much for coming on Morning Tea.
Cheers. I made myself a coffee too.
Oh, very nice. So I love to start with just a little grounding just to kind of settle into the space, and then I'll have you introduce yourself and then we'll dive in from there. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect.
Okay, awesome. So, and then for anyone who's watching, you can join us in this grounding as well. So we're just going to sit up nice and tall, rolling the shoulders up and back, closing off the eyes if you feel comfortable. And let's start by taking just a deep grounding breath in and slowly release. And just noticing how your breath is feeling in this present moment. Noticing any thoughts coming up, any distractions, any sounds in your environment, and refocusing on the breath. And then bringing your awareness into your body, noticing any body sensations, any areas of tension or tightness. And doing a quick body scan, relaxing your brow line, your jaw, your shoulders, your heart, your chest, your abdomen, the base of your spine. Noticing any tension in your legs or toes or fingers or arms. And sending an intentional breath into any part of the body that needs it most. And then bringing your awareness to any emotions that need to come to the surface, any stuck, stored, old, or stagnant emotion, or any new emotion. And just allowing space for any and all feelings to come to the surface. Knowing you are safe to be with whatever comes up in each present moment. And now together, let's take 3 long deep breaths. So placing your hands on your heart or your abdomen or your lap, whatever feels best. We're going to start with the first inhale, breathing all the way in, holding at the top, and slowly release. And again, breathing all the way in, holding at the top, and slowly release. And one more, breathing all the way in, holding at the top, and slowly release. Just allowing your breath to return back to its natural rhythm. Noticing if anything has softened or shifted, or if anything new has shown up. And whenever you're ready, you can start to take any small organic movement, maybe some neck rolls, or some side stretches, or anything that your body's asking for, as we slowly start to come back to the present. All right. How did that feel?
Thank you so much. It felt really great.
Good. So glad.
I haven't done a grounding exercise today yet, so that was amazing. I also loved how your cat came to say hi.
Oh my God, I know. Anytime I have a call or I'm going live, it's like her moment to shine. So she'll just
I
be.
had to lock mine out because it's a bit unpredictable.
Totally. Yeah. This is like her favorite spot. So we'll just have to bear with it. And remind me, where are you tuning in from?
I'm in Germany right now.
Oh, in Germany. Okay. Are you from Germany?
Yes, I'm from here, so I'm actually visiting my parents here now, and I'm in my childhood bedroom here.
Whoa, that must be a trip.
It is. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. Well, thank you again for coming on. So I love, just for those that may be watching for my community that aren't familiar with you, just to introduce yourself, like who are you, what do you do, why do you love the work that you do, and we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, of course. So I'm an autoimmune health coach. So I coach people with autoimmune conditions on how to really lead their best lives with their condition. It's not something I did for my whole life. I've only done this since a couple of years. I used to work in finance before, so something completely different.
Wow.
And I was pretty healthy all of my life until I wasn't. And I have 3 autoimmune conditions right now. So I have autoimmune hepatitis, primary biliary cirrhosis, which is a gallbladder condition, and a gut condition, inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease. So the whole package. And that obviously changed my whole life. And I had some really difficult times that kind of brought me to dive really deep into this whole topic of health, of natural healing, of holistic medicine. I did a couple of coaching certifications, mainly for myself at the time, so for me to really understand what is happening, why is this happening, why is it so difficult, why is healing so hard. And somehow that really turned into my calling, and I'm just enjoying it so much. I love talking to other people who are going through the same thing, being able to help them somehow, passing on the information that I learned, because this is my life now, and I feel like I have so much in me that I can just use to share and spread the word and guide other people, lead other people through that same journey. And I live completely symptom free now, so that is possible. I have my conditions, so they're not going to go away. Autoimmune diseases can't be cured, so they always be there. But that's not, it doesn't have to mean that this is, your, how do they say, your diagnosis doesn't have to be your prognosis. So you can take this and make whatever you want out of it. And absolutely. I'm here to say that it's possible, and I can help. Yeah, I love that so much. It's such a beautiful example of pain into purpose, right? Your own living through these symptoms and feeling like healing so hard, and then being able to actually
reach this point where you are symptom free. And I know most doctors or most people would say, like, it's not, some things aren't curable. I'm always in the belief that, like, when we truly get to the root of how that disease formed in the first place, which I know we'll talk a little bit about today in terms of alignment and emotions and how that all plays in, I truly believe that anything is possible, right? Like, anything is possible to heal and to cure. And it's really understanding how these things happen to begin with. So the fact that you're already living symptom free, like, is just, I know, going to be so inspiring for others to hear, because there are people right now listening to this that have no hope for their symptoms alleviating and actually feeling like they can live a quote unquote normal life. So it's really incredible. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about, what did that journey look like for you? Like, how did you go from having all these symptoms to being symptom free? Like, what were the biggest things that uh, made that change for you?
Yeah, well, that's obviously a really good question. It's it was a long journey. So
Mhm.
to say that, I'm gonna see how I can wrap it up in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Basically, so my first diagnosis I got, I think it was 2018, so it must have been what is it, like 6 years ago. So that's when this whole journey started. And for me, at the time, I went to my doctor. I said, like, what can I do? I have all this medication. Fair enough, I'll do it. Take that. What else can I do? There must be something more.
Yeah.
Because the more that I was like reading on autoimmune conditions, and I mean, just for anyone who isn't familiar with that term, basically it means your immune system, which is your defense system, your defense mechanism,
Right.
somehow is misguided, turns against yourself, and starts attacking your own tissues, organs, could be any part of the body, really. So something must have happened to trigger the immune system to stop being able to differentiate between what is foreign, what isn't supposed to be there, what is supposed to be attacked, and what is the self, which is our body, which it's supposed to protect typically. And there's many different theories on why that happens. The short answer is we don't know. So it's like one of these things that just happen randomly. And functional medicine has a bit more of a layered approach to it. So they say that there's three aspects that are relevant when we're talking about autoimmune disease. One is your genes. So some people are just more genetically likely to develop autoimmune conditions. There's nothing you can do about that, just something to accept. The second would be environmental factors, where you also don't have too many options really to deal with those sometimes. So it could be completely random things like an infection. You might have COVID, for example, and something like that. Like we have long COVID now, which may or may not be an autoimmune disease. Things like this can really mess up our system. Viruses, parasites, bacteria, anything like that. There isn't anything you can do about this. This happened to you once. Your immune system is like, oh, something happened. I'm confused now. And then you have an autoimmune disease. So again, we can't really do much about that. But the third factor would be your lifestyle. And that's something that we can control, right? We can decide what we eat. We can decide how we lead our lives. We can decide how much we move, what kind of work we do, any decision really that we're taking, what kind of environment we expose ourselves to, like how we interact with the world, really, what we put in our body, what we put on our body, on our skin, things like that, toxins, if we can avoid them or not. So there's a lot that we can do there. And once I had understood that, for me it made sense that there are things obviously that I can do. What are these things? I'm going to go to my doctor and check with them.
Right.
The answer that I got was there isn't really anything you can do. Just lead your life like you used to do and take your medication. So that wasn't very helpful. And for me, that triggered this like bit of an obsession with health and what is a healthy lifestyle? What does it mean to live a healthy life? The first things that came up for me or come up for many people probably, is diet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that you can do with diet. It's probably one of the first things that people always turn to, the first things that people always recommend. But then that is really just like scratching the surface. I'm going to change my diet. Then what does that mean? There's vegetarian, vegan, Mediterranean, keto, paleo. Like it's a massive world, and that was really overwhelming for me at the time. So I dove right in there. I tried out all kinds of different diets. It didn't make much sense to me. Like, why are there so many diets? Like, how is it? Like, how is it possible that a vegan diet can coexist with a carnivore diet? And there's people on both sides who say this is the way to go. You know, it's so confusing. This whole space is very, very confusing, very overwhelming. For me, it was a horrible experience at the time. So I tried many different diets. I feel like I was feeling worse and worse. I was struggling so much through all of this, emotionally, mentally, physically. So that was a really tough journey. And then I kind of just decided to drop everything because it wasn't working for me, and really get into my head a bit more and see what's happening up there. Because I was at a point where my head was such a mess. I was like at the verge of like feeling depressed on top of everything. Like I was not having fun anymore. I wasn't really feeling myself anymore. Everything was horrible. Everything was miserable.
Yeah, totally.
And and I put so much work into cleaning up that mess in my head and getting on top of really my thoughts, like what is going on in there, and like how can I make sure that my mind is robust so I can like take on something like changing my diet or changing anything else in my life, really, because I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have any resources for that. I had nothing left to give. And I think that is something many people who have an autoimmune disease might be able to empathize with, because typically at the point where we say we turn to diet or turn to something like as extreme as that, right? Like changing our diet is something extreme. It's like it's a massive impact on our lives. We do that when we're like at rock bottom. It's the last thing that we want to do. Nobody wants to change their diet. We want to eat what we always ate. We want to eat our comfort foods, right? So you do that as a last resort. But at that point, you have nothing left to give. And it takes so much from you to go through a massive change like changing a diet. If you have no resources, it's just a losing battle that you're fighting. And every day is going to be so hard. On top of everything, you can't eat all the foods that you want to eat. On top of everything, every day you're faced with this decision: am I going to stick with this diet that I hate? Because probably people at this point hate it. They don't want to do this. Or am I just going to give up and like accept that I'm failing, that I can't do it right, that I'm doing it all wrong, that other people can do it but I can't? So it's like a lose-lose situation. And that is something I see really often, people being in this little space where everything is hard, everything is a battle, like it used to be for me. And what I found is really to pause that, to not jump right into diet, not jump right into like changing your whole life, changing all of the different things when you're not mentally ready for that. And instead, really start with your head, start with your mind and your mind space. Look at your emotions, what's going on inside, and clean up that mess. And that makes you so much more resilient, so much more strong and able to take on things like that. So that was like a bit of a background, but that is really what I believe in. We have to go do this inner work. And then we can take on everything else. But if we don't have that base, then everything is just going to be a battle.
Completely agree. Like 1,000%. I think that's the missing piece for so many, is that we automatically jump to, let's change our whole diet, let's change our whole lifestyle, but we're not actually looking at our internal world. And so it doesn't actually matter what we change externally, because the external mirrors the internal. So if internally our nervous systems are dysregulated in survival mode, it doesn't matter how many, kale and apples and vegetables that you're eating. your nervous system being in survival mode is not going to allow you to actually absorb those nutrients. And so it's just going to perpetuate what's actually happening. And the thing is our bodies are always communicating to us. So for me, I had chronic illness my entire life. I had childhood leukemia when I was a baby. I was treated for Lyme's disease like 2 or 3 times, all for them to then tell me I maybe didn't have Lyme's disease. I had mysterious rashes. They tested me for lupus. They thought I had autoimmune disease. What I actually had was a activated inner child who was terrified and who had learned to get needs met, emotional needs met through being sick. And I don't know if you're familiar with Gabor Mate, but his work talks a lot about this, of how physical illness stems from unprocessed emotion. So I had a lot of stored childhood trauma that was living in my body. And when those emotions,
score, isn't that the book?
That's the Bessel van der Kolk book. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like when there's no place for that emotion to go, and that emotion is energy living in our bodies, it has to go somewhere. So people, clients that come to me and they're like, I have chronic migraines, or I have chronic IBS, or, symptoms like that. I'm like, okay, let's look at actually what those symptoms are communicating. Because the thing is that when we go to a doctor, they'll say, these are just your genes and you can't do anything about it. But what I've learned through changing my own nervous system and my own genes is that my genetics is based on generational trauma. So I got trauma from my mom and my mom's mom and my dad's dad, right? And all these generations before me. And through actually processing that stored emotion, cleaning up the mess. I love how you said that. Like, we actually get to upgrade our genes. We get to change the environment in which those symptoms are thriving in, and actually show our nervous system a whole new way of safety. So I was considered to have different genes that were considered autoimmune. And now I don't have any of that. Like, I don't have any of those symptoms. I barely get sick anymore. Like, completely changed my entire nervous system because I processed that stored pain. So I know we were going to talk a little bit about living in alignment, and how, we're talking about processing the emotions, looking at how this is all showing up in your mindset, and then actually looking at where are you out of alignment. So if we trace it back to like your story of having all these symptoms and now you're symptom free, how did you notice? I mean, it sounds like your mind was really communicating, you're out of alignment, but how did you then kind of notice that and then really realize, oh, wait, I need to get into alignment if I'm going to heal these symptoms? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's an extremely complex question, right?
Yeah.
I hope to be able to find an easy answer for that. But basically, I mean, what you already mentioned, there is such a thing as the mind body connection, right?
Right.
So, whatever is going on in our mind is going to be reflected in our body. And also the other way around, whatever happens to our body, whatever our body goes through, whatever we do with our body, really can lead to changes in our mind. And that might be mood changes, it might be like actual psychological changes, anything. But to understand that link is really important, because if we often focus so much on our body when we're talking about disease that we forget that link. And for me, if I go back in time, and now in hindsight, I can say, yeah, that didn't surprise me. Like, it didn't surprise me that I got sick, because my body was going through so much at the time.
Right.
My mind was going through so much at the time. Both of those were completely different spaces. I was not taking care of either of them. I was living in an environment where I was unhappy. I was at a job where I was constantly overwhelmed, constantly stressed out. I didn't sleep properly. I didn't eat properly because I was so stressed at work. I didn't have a good social support system at the time, because I had just moved away from home. It was my first job after graduating. I was in a new city. I was in a new environment there, and I thought I was loving that. I had this job that I had worked so hard for, and I was so excited. I had like arrived, I had everything that I thought I wanted, but I was so deeply, deeply unhappy. And I was ignoring that.
Right.
And I wasn't accepting it, because for me that would have felt like failure,
Yeah.
because I had worked so hard to get exactly where I was, just to find out that it wasn't actually what I wanted.
Right.
So had I unpacked that, it would have been like, what do I do now? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing,
Totally.
This is exactly what I wanted. So I have no plan B at this point. So I'm not allowing myself to go through this, to open this box and work through this emotion. And I love how, this series that you're doing is called Feel It to Heal It, right? And I didn't allow myself to do that. I didn't want to feel all of this. I didn't want to deal with it. So what I was doing is suppress all of these feelings. And I was suppressing what I was going through at work. I was suppressing how much that drained me physically and mentally. How I was not able to deal with all of the stress. I wasn't able to deal with the hours. But I wasn't able to admit that either, because, again, that would have been a failure. And at the same time, whatever little energy I had left, I would just give away after work. I used to go to yoga classes most of the week, but like really intense yoga classes where I was not able to walk home afterwards sometimes, where I had to like actually rest and like, okay, I'm feeling so dizzy. I can't take the train now. I have to wait now. But at least I worked out. Like, at least I did that for myself.
Right, right.
So living in a world where it's completely delusional, thinking I was doing all the right things, while I was doing the exact opposite.
Right.
And I was draining my body, I was draining my mind, I was draining my energy, I was draining everything I had until I had nothing left to give. And the whole time, my body was screaming at me, stop it.
Yeah.
My mind was screaming at me to stop it, but I didn't listen. And I didn't want to listen to it. So eventually something broke, and then I had to listen, right? Like, there was a quote once that I can't completely remember, but it was something like, the soul tells the body to do something, so the person stops and listens to it. Like, it is the soul that is triggering the body to push the person into noticing that something is wrong. And that is how I was convinced that is what was happening for me. I had all of this damage accumulated, and it took my body to break down for me to realize actually something is going on with all of me, not just my physical body, but also mentally, with my mind, with everything. Yeah. And to work through, now I'm trying to get back to your question, because I feel like I drifted a little bit, but to wrap this up in a way, I had to really go back to that root of working through all the mental mess that came with that. And for me, it was big things like being a perfectionist, for example, that it was one of my coping mechanisms. I had learned that when you do things perfect, nothing can fault you, no one can criticize you. Yeah. It's a defense mechanism, right? And it's something that a lot of people who have autoimmune diseases have in common, oddly enough. They tend to be perfectionists, because we're trying to, make it right for everyone, not have people find fault with us. But we're giving so much in being perfect that, again, we have no resources left. Like, it just drains us to do that. Yeah. Also, being a people pleaser, same thing. It's also something we typically have in common. You do so much for other people, you can't say no, you take on so much more than you can handle, it drains you. Totally. And all of these things that are mental things, right? Like, it's habits that we do, but they have a physical impact because of the actions that we decide to take to cater to all of these mental things you have going on, right? So facing that, first of all, discovering these things, discovering the habits that I'm doing without even thinking about those, discovering the inner stories that I'm telling myself about myself, like how, like, what's success for me, what is failure for me, what do I have to do to be accepted by other people, things like this, right? And we often have a really mean voice in our head, right? If we listen to our inner voice, that can be traumatizing sometimes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to deal with this inner voice somehow and turn that into a voice that is supportive, that is nice, and that actually likes us. And that is usually something where I start with my clients, because you need that if you want to then move on and work through diet and other things. If you don't have this supportive companion in your head, but someone who's really mean and who keeps saying, like, you can't do this, you can't do anything right, you're always doing it wrong, you're failing, this is your fault. I mean, we all know this way too well, probably. But these are things we have to clean up first. And now I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, just in terms of how you, absolutely. Just all you had to do to get into alignment, right? Because now you feel more in alignment because you actually had to look at all of those things coming up for you. And I'm so glad that you touched on
alignment.
Exactly.
So I was at the time so much out of alignment that I couldn't even see what alignment even looks like. And that was a really long process after, but it really also forced me to think about this, to think about where I went wrong, how I ended up with this life that I was so unhappy about, and really define for myself what I even wanted out of life. Because I'd never truly done that until then. Because I think that's also something many people can maybe empathize with. We tend to borrow other people's ideas of what success is, what life is supposed to look like. We have, of course, our parents, right, who raise us, who imprint their ideas on us. We have our friends, our peers. We have people we study with, and all of them define our idea of what life is supposed to look like. So we don't often take the time to reconsider if that's actually what we want for ourselves.
Totally.
That is what my disease, my illness did for me. It forced me to consider that. And by really going through that and unpacking that and thinking about what are my values, what are my beliefs, what's my purpose, that really helped me to define what alignment could even look like. And then to move there is like a whole different chapter. But I think defining that, first of all, is probably the hardest bit, because most people never actually do that.
Totally. Yeah. And I think what you shared at the beginning of like realizing that you were unhappy in your job and, but you were just going to kind of keep going because that's what you had planned to do. So many people, including myself, can relate to that because like you said, our bodies are always communicating when we are out of alignment, when we're not happy, when our soul is like, knock, knock, like this is not what you're supposed to be doing. But we are attachment-based creatures, so we attach so easily onto, well, this is what I'd planned to do, or this is what my parents want me to do, or this is what society expects me to do, that we attach onto this thing rather than the anchor being what our body is communicating, what our soul desires, what our heart desires, what we actually want. And I had the same exact situation where I was really unhappy at work. I was really burnt out. I was really sick all the time. Like my body was screaming at me. And I was like, well, I've worked, 8 years to be able to do this path. How am I going to, what happens when you go to the path that you had worked so hard to get to realize that you're miserable in it, right? It's like, it takes a lot of courage. Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to actually prioritize your happiness over what everyone else wants for you in your life. Like when I left the traditional therapy field to start my own online coaching business, I had a lot of people in my life that were not happy about it. They were terrified for me, understandably so. It was a very risky move. And at the same time, you have to be you have to feel safe enough to listen to that soul's calling, right? Like when we are attachment-based creatures and the idea of leaving a job that maybe society wants us to be in, or our parents or our family members or our friends, and we go against the current, we go against what everyone else is doing and saying we should do, and go the opposite way, we have to risk our loved ones being upset with us. We have to risk criticism and judgment and people not understanding and feeling misunderstood and not accepted, all for the name of alignment. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to be in alignment, you have to understand that it's not going to always feel safe to get into alignment. You're going to have to risk losing people, judgment, all the things I just mentioned. And that's why having that support, right? Like the work that you do with your clients, the work I do with my clients, having that support, someone to see you and to see what actually lights up your soul and say, I got you. You are safe to take this leap. Because we don't have that a lot of the time. We don't have someone to look at us and be like, oh, you're miserable at your job, quit. Like giving us that permission, quit, go follow your dreams. Like we don't have that a lot of the time. Most of the time we have, oh yeah, I'm miserable at my job too. Like it's just normal, right? We just normalize these things. And it's like, no, like it's actually not normal to be living out of alignment, because if it was, your body wouldn't be screaming at you and creating all of these symptoms to knock and get your attention, right? So when we actually start to live in alignment, our bodies no longer have to scream at us for us to listen. And we start feeling better because we're lit up by our own life. We get excited to get to come on and do this as our job. I'm sure both of us on a Wednesday morning would have been doing something way more stressful than coming onto Instagram and having a conversation about this, right? But this is now our job because we chose alignment over suffering. And it takes a lot of courage to do that, to leave, the career in finance, for me to leave the therapy world, like to do something different. It takes so much courage. And so having that support system is everything, because if not, you're not going to feel safe enough to actually feel the fear and do it anyway, right? You're just going to let that fear take over, and then you're going to stay stuck. And it might feel safer because your body is familiar with it. Your nervous system is like, yeah, I remember this level of anxiety, this level of depression, this level of suffering. And if you want something new, you have to do something different. And it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be easy. But just like you did, you had to look at, okay, what is all this bringing up? And I'm so glad that you brought up the perfectionism, the people pleasing, all of that, because we don't often, again, those are things that are so normalized that we don't often look at those as one of those common denominators of people who experience chronic illness or chronic disease or mental illness or whatever it is. We are living for the perceptions of others. We are living to avoid shame, right? Because if we're perfect, if we have this perception that, okay, we just have to be perfect, then we don't have to deal with other people thinking we're not perfect and making us feel shame. And this is why learning how to actually feel your feelings, including shame, because shame is a part of life, then we don't have to spend our whole lives running from those feelings through protectors like perfectionism, control, people pleasing, and we actually feel safe to actually feel the feelings and to anchor home to what feels in alignment for us. And the most beautiful part about alignment is when you make even just one brave step, right, towards that alignment, you'll start to notice everything else come into place around that, right? Like obviously it's not as simple as like, okay, just take one step but it starts to shift things, because before your anchor was this survival mode of I need to be perfect. And so then you're bringing in things that are in survival mode, like your body being sick and all these symptoms. But when you release that and you go into, okay, I'm safe to actually listen to what my heart and soul wants, you'll notice your body respond to that. It's like your body and the universe and God, like always reinforcing, right? Like when you are getting further into alignment, it's like that game where, you're playing hide and seek with your friends as a kid. And it's like, okay, you're getting warmer or you're getting colder, right? You're getting warmer. It's like, our bodies do that every day. When we have symptoms, it's like, nope, you're getting further out of alignment. This doesn't feel good. Or if we're really experiencing that alignment, our body's like, oh, I can rest in this. I can like enjoy this. This feels so nourishing and good and regulating for the nervous system. Like your symptoms are always communicating how out of alignment you are and how in alignment you are. And it's a process, just like you said, it's messy, it's not easy, it takes a lot of courage, but it's so worth it because you're such a powerful example of that, of now you don't have to live with these symptoms because you actually listened to your body, right? Which is so freaking powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up so many like things that I love and have like so many things to say about that. But basically, because you mentioned it takes a lot of courage, right, to make that first step and to decide you are in misalignment and to do something about it. And for me, at the time, it really didn't feel like this at all. Because when I decided to quit my job and I had nothing else, no other, no backup plan.
Right.
I just quit and took a sabbatical for myself. And for me, that felt like a massive failure because, like you said, similar to your story, it was something that we had worked really hard for, right? This was like the career that we wanted.
Yeah.
To take a step back from that and accept that it's not working out, for me, was a massive failure. So I was really ashamed when I quit and left that world behind. And people kept telling me, so maybe the other way around. For me, that didn't feel brave. It wasn't a decision that I took because I chose myself.
Right.
For me, it was I had failed. This did not work for me. There was nothing brave about it. But I was at this point where I had nothing left to give. It felt like rock bottom for me. I didn't have any other option. Like I felt like I was with my back against the wall.
Right.
That's
kind of forced into it. Yeah.
When I told other people I was leaving in my company, I had expected for them to be very surprised, be maybe negative about that, be judgmental about that. And most people were actually saying, you're so brave. You're so courageous. I wish I could do this. I was thinking,
you're like, this is not what I expected.
Right? Like I had no other option. So that really surprised me because a lot of people seem to be in a similar situation where they feel like this is not the path they're supposed to go.
Right.
They're supposed to be on, but they don't do anything about it. For me, I had crossed that line such a long time ago that I had no other options left. I was forced to do that, to make that decision to leave. But I wish it didn't have to be like this. I wish people didn't have to be forced to stay for so long until they can't possibly stay any longer.
Yeah.
And that is really, I feel like, where a coach can help because they can support someone to come to a decision like that without having to do it at like the very last resort.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to wait this long.
Right. Not being forced into it.
Like that I really regret. And I didn't have anyone at the time to talk to about these things.
Right.
I didn't even know about coaching. I didn't know if I could talk to my friends about this. I didn't know if I could talk to my family about this. Just to voice the idea of dropping everything after having spent so much time and money on studying again. Like finally I was there and I was ready and I had started. and then to be like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
I'm leaving now.
I totally get it.
I'm gonna do something else. I don't know what it is, but I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah.
That did not feel safe for me.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone else to go through that. And it's really something where we all, and that's what I noticed when I left. We all have these concerns. We all want to do, or like maybe not all of us, but many of us want to do something differently than what they're currently doing, but they don't feel brave enough. They feel like maybe things aren't bad enough yet. Maybe things are going to get better eventually.
Yeah.
But if you already feel like this, you're already living out of alignment.
Totally. Your
And you're not going to
symptoms,
be able to find that alignment if you just stick with it and suppress that feeling.
right.
Because then the only thing that happens is it grows and grows and grows until it's so big, eventually you'll be forced to make that decision. But it's no longer your decision. It's not going to feel good.
Right. It's not going to feel brave and
like
courageous. Totally.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So having someone support you in finding what alignment is, what that could look like.
Yeah.
Creating a safe space where you can explore what is alignment even for you. Like, what do you want out of life? Like, why are you put on this earth for?
Right.
And what's your purpose? What's your direction?
Yeah.
And these are things that I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to explore that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I'm grateful. At the time, I wasn't really grateful for this.
Yeah.
But it can be such a powerful moment for you to realize this didn't work. I'm going to have to do something differently. I have to change my life. Now I have to start from scratch. And that's going to feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this opportunity that you have to do it all over again and do it right the next time.
Yeah.
Because this is not our fault. Like, we're not in this situation because we brought this on ourselves. We didn't know any better. Like, we did what we had to do. We did what we were told to be doing. We did what everyone else was doing. Mm-hmm. But now we know better. Right. And if we then don't use this opportunity to actually do better, then that's what
Yeah, exactly. Then we're gonna have to learn the lesson all over again. So that was part of your soul's learning, is having to get to that rock bottom place and be like, okay, next time I'm feeling, symptoms or feeling like something's not right, my lesson is to listen to that, right? And to notice like where I didn't feel safe to listen to that the first time, and have such compassion for yourself that you didn't feel safe to listen to that. It all comes back to safety. It all comes back to attachment of like, if everyone else is saying this thing and we go against it, it's going to feel utterly terrifying. So it makes so much sense why you had to reach that rock bottom. And now you've shown your nervous system, oh, I actually am safe to listen to myself, because not only did I not die, but you are now more in alignment than you've ever been in your life. So I think this is, for the listeners, like learning from both of our experiences of, the symptoms are only going to get louder if you don't listen. So please listen and know that you are safe to listen. And if you don't feel safe, you have to find, like you said, a support system to hold you in that fear and show you that you actually are safe. Because all of the things that lie in your head, those are all just trauma, all just protectors. They're not actual facts, right? The fact is that 99.9% of the time, we actually are safe to listen to that. And if you're actually in a position where you're not safe to listen to that, even more reason why you need support, right? So, and I think also what you said about, it not feeling brave and it feeling more like a failure, like that is such a powerful and relatable example of how like that inner critic voice, right, of how that stems from our own trauma, right? Where did we learn that it's a failure to actually like course correct if we are on a path that doesn't feel in alignment, right? That's our conditioning, that's our wounding, that's our attachment trauma, that's our inner child feeling scared of like, oh my God, I'm wrong because I don't enjoy doing this thing that I thought I was going to enjoy. Whereas if we look at it from the perspective of our highest, most powerful, authentic selves, we're like, oh, of course, because how would you know if you like something until you do it? And then you do it, and we don't have to attach on to it being like the thing. It's like, oh, I can just pivot because we're meant to change and grow and flow and experience different things in life. We're not actually supposed to, like this path that society is paved out for us of like, go to college, find the job, do the same thing until you are ready to die. Like that's not actually living. And so when we go against that, it feels like, oh my God, we failed. And it's like, oh no, actually, it's the opposite of failing. We actually succeeded because most of the world will not feel courageous enough to listen to the calling of their soul. They will stay in the same job that they're miserable at. I mean, I cannot tell you the amount of jobs I was in where I felt miserable and everyone else did too. And yet everyone else had been there for years and years and years. And I was like, oh my God, why are you still here? Right? Because it feels safe. It feels safer to stay in a miserable hell than actually experience a more of a blissful life, right? It takes so much courage and support. So I think you and I are both examples of that. And just for anyone listening, like it's okay that it feels scary, and the symptoms will only get louder. So you have a choice. Are you going to listen now and be like, what do I actually want? And the thing is you don't even need to know exactly what you want, right? Like, I think that's another misconception that we're told is we go to college, it's like pick one major. And then for me, I didn't even use my major in my career. It was completely unrelated. And then we're supposed to know what we want to do. How are we supposed to know if we don't actually live and experience and explore? So it's okay if you don't know what you want to do. I have actually a client right now who, like, she came to me and was like, I have no idea what I want to do, but I know I don't want to do this. And sometimes that's how we start. We have to start with, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that the thing I'm doing right now, I don't want to do it anymore. That is valuable information. That is you getting to know your authentic self. Okay, I don't actually like this thing that I thought I might like. Okay, good to know. That's great information. And then you start to play around and explore, like, listening to your body, what lights you up, right? Like when you are working with a client and you feel lit up, you're like, okay, this is information of, I really like this. Or when you think about doing that thing that your brain tells you is too crazy to do, like this client, for example, I think she does know what she wants to do, but she doesn't think it's realistic. And I keep telling her, like, you literally could get paid to do exactly what you're doing. And she's just doing what she loves to do, but she doesn't think that that's like a realistic career choice. And I'm like, says who? You literally get to create your life. You get to design it. And if you don't believe that you do, that just means that there's some stuff that we have to process through, and that's okay. Right? So it's just remembering, like, you always are the one that gets to choose, even when we think that's not the case. And I think it's, yeah, just thank you so much for sharing everything that you did, because I think it's such a powerful example that so many people are going to listen to and be like, okay, well, if she did it, and if she did it, then I can do it too.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I just agree with everything you said, because I
yeah,
think the most important message is that we get to create our own lives, right?
yeah,
And nobody else is going to do that for us. And
right.
it's so funny, this concept of how we're allowed to grow and to explore and to not be able to make a decision
Mhm.
until we're like 20 or something in our low 20s. And then from there on, we're supposed to have it all figured out.
Right.
Our life is supposed to be a straight line, right?
Right.
No mistakes can happen.
Mhm.
No, like, turns can happen.
Right.
And suddenly we're no longer allowed to change our mind
Right.
and to grow and to become different people. I mean, we're growing between being 10 years old, 20 years old, we're growing so much.
Mhm.
Who says this stops
Yeah,
when we stop university? Like, this is just, our lives continue like that, right? We grow
exactly.
and we develop, and we want things today that we might not want tomorrow.
Right.
And that is fine. But
Yes.
somehow it's not accepted in
Mhm.
society
Right.
that these things happen. So
Yeah.
then we're forced to lead this life that was perfect for us maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We
Mhm.
can't change our mind anymore, because then that is failure.
Right.
Who says that?
Right.
And
So
I think
it's so
the whole
silly.
like the whole like, I mean, my conviction in terms of living your best health is that you create that for yourself. But
Yep.
the same idea obviously applies to the whole life. You create that for yourself. Nobody
Yeah.
else gets to tell you what you're supposed to be doing, right?
Mhm.
And I think that is something, like, that is a revolutionary concept. We have to accept, like,
Yeah.
deeply accept, to understand, yeah, this is my call.
Mhm.
I can decide what I want to do.
Yeah.
I can decide if I like this or if I don't like this. I can decide if this feels good for me or not.
Right. Yeah.
That is something we have to learn, because it is so weird to us and so foreign that we are allowed to have a say in this.
Totally, totally.
But once you've understood that and you're okay, like this is my life, I will call the shots now. I will make the decision. From there on, you have all the options,
Yeah.
right? And
You open
like,
up your whole
it's
life.
just an open door for you,
Yeah.
and all good things from here.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, that's my
And
message.
yeah, it's so beautifully said. And that is true freedom, right? When you open that door and you realize, oh, wait, I've been living by someone else's rules this whole time. And then you might feel a little
Yeah.
angry at first. You're like, what the hell, but it's all part of the learning. It's all part of you coming home to your own power and like really listening to that inner voice of like anything is possible, healing is possible, like no matter what any person, coach, doctor, whatever you've been to that's told you like you're just gonna have to live like this for your whole life. It's absolutely not true. I truly believe that anything is healable when we get to the root and do the inner work and shift, because those symptoms are signals, and when we listen to them, they don't need to communicate as loudly anymore. So, well, this was so lovely. Is there anything else before we start wrapping up that we missed or that you want to share, or how can people find you if they want to work with you? That would be helpful to know.
Right. So, I mean, of course, they can find me on Instagram. So
Yep.
maybe I'm tagged somewhere.
Yes,
Maybe
I will
should
add you
click
as a
on that.
collaborator. Yep.
From there, I've actually just before this call, I've added a booking link to my page. So
Okay.
for anyone who is interested to explore their personal story a little bit more with me, if there's any questions, go and book a call. I think the link is even on my Instagram, so you can just click on there, go to my website, book a call. I'll do that for the first 5 people who are willing, who are interested, who want to change something, and then I'm going to take that down again. So if you have any questions, if you want to explore your own story a little bit more, see how what we talked about here could relate to you, how maybe I can help you a little bit with that, just book that call and we can talk about it, and maybe I can help a little.
Yay. So amazing. I love it. And for anyone who's listening, just a reminder, part of the work that I do in terms of getting you into alignment is helping you feel safe to release addictive behavior. So I'm hosting a free masterclass this Saturday called Binging to Bliss, all about releasing TV addiction. So if anyone is listening to this on Friday when the podcast episode comes out and you want to join for the masterclass, just message me and I will send you the link. So thank you so much, Xenia, for being here, for sharing your story, for sharing your wisdom and your light with us. It has been such an honor to have you, and definitely will add you as a collaborator so you can have this on your page if you want as well. And yeah, thank you again. This was so great.
Thank you so much for having me on and for sharing your beautiful little corner of Instagram with me. I love to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, well, we'll be in touch soon and have a beautiful rest of your day. All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.